No. Recording. Cool. And then once you guys start talking, I'm going to see if I can get the Facebook thing working. So, cool. All right. Well, technical difficulties happen. Hello, everybody. How you doing? My name is Chris Morris. I'm the Communications and Outreach Director at Northern Forest Canoe Trail. We're going to give folks a couple more minutes to join. We have people filtering in still. And while they're doing that, I'm going to see if I can get us going on Facebook as well. And then we'll get started right at 7:05 p.m. So sit tight for a couple minutes here, and then we'll get rolling. All right, so we still have some folks wandering in, and it's just about 7:05. So I'm going to get things started here. We are recording this. The original intent was to simulcast it on Facebook, but of course, there's always something weird that happens right at the last minute. So we'll record it here, and then we'll post to Facebook after, so everybody else has a chance to check it out too. Again, my name is Chris Morris. I'm the Communications Outreach Director at Northern Forest Canoe Trail. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight for this virtual session on some fun adventures in Maine. We started these virtual sessions a few years ago during the pandemic just to stay connected with everybody. And we learned relatively quickly that folks really enjoyed this opportunity to stay connected throughout the paddling season, during the off season. So we just sort of kept it rolling. Before we jump into things tonight, I just want to encourage folks to visit our website, northernforestcanoetrail.org. We've got some events coming up this spring, starting with some film festivals in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and the Round the Mountain Canoe and Kayak Race in Saranac Lake. That's just a small slice of what we've got going on this year. We have a pretty full slate through June, July, and then wrapping up in September with the 90 miler and the Long Lake Longboat Regatta. So check out our website, check out our events. And also there's still some room for some waterway work trips throughout the summer where you can join up with our stewardship crew. We've got 9 trips scheduled, but the spots are filling up, so you might want to jump on there and check that out quick. So tonight's virtual session features 3 speakers, all of whom will be talking about some shorter adventures on and near the NFCT in Maine. In recent years, we've been really busy in the Adirondacks since we took over the Adirondack Race Series. And this year, we've got a lot going on in Maine, including a new race, some expanded stewardship work along the Allagash Waterway. So we thought it would be a great way to kick off the season and shine a light on some paddling opportunities in Maine. Our speakers are Karrie Thomas, Executive Director at the NFCT, Jason Smith, who owns Adirondack Lakes and Trails Outfitters in Saranac Lake, which they've always been a really strong business sponsor for the NFCT. And then we've got Austin Garber as well. A quick note on how this is going to work. Each speaker is going to take about 10 minutes to talk about the trip they did, share some photos and some information, and then we'll turn things over to Q&A. Since we have so many folks on the Zoom meeting tonight, what I'm going to ask you to do is to type your questions into the chat as we go. And if it's a question for a specific speaker, just specify that and say a question for Jason, question for Karrie, et cetera. And when they're all finished speaking, I'll go through in order and we'll ask those questions. And then we'll wrap up and we'll try and be done and finished by 8 o'clock. So without further ado, we're going to start with Austin. Geographically, it makes the most sense as we move along the trail. So Austin, why don't you go ahead and take it away? And
Sure.
feel free to share your screen.
Yeah, appreciate it. So the first trip that I'm going to be talking about tonight is the Moose River Bow trip over in Jackman, Maine. Both trips that I'm discussing this evening are unique in that they are both loop trips, which doesn't require any sort of shuttling and making sure you have a vehicle at one end or the other. You always come back to where you started, which is desirable for many people, including myself. So the first one I'll be talking about, like I said, is the Moose River trip. So let me get my screen pulled up here. I've got some maps so you can follow along. And if you do happen to have map number 10 for the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, you can follow along with that as well. It is on there with all the campsites documented. So let me get my screen pulled up here. Let's you guys see this all right? So this is the overlay of the trip. So it goes counterclockwise in this direction across Addian Pond. There's a pretty brutal uphill portage right here, but that's where you gain all your elevation in order to go downstream all the way back into Addian Pond. So I'm going to kind of walk through this. There is an option if you don't want to do this portage. It is rough. You can call the Cry of the Loon outfitters and they will shuttle you and bring all your gear. They'll leave your car here. They'll bring you all the way around and drop you off on the northern end of Whole Head Pond, just so that you can avoid that if that's not of any interest to you. Their phone number's down here. So without further ado, so this is the parking area up here. Apparently you're supposed to be able to get to the dock down here. However, from what I've read and in our experience, this gate up here is now closed permanently. So there's a foot trail that goes through this clearing here down to the river where you have to put in. It's a little bit of extra paddling, but it's nothing too extreme. So once you come out of the opening there, you'll come out into Addian Pond. So I'm just going to document a few of the sites that we stayed at on our trip. We were originally going to do it as a 3-day, 2-night. We got antsy and decided to go out a night early. And so we grabbed this first campsite on Addian Pond and made it a 4-day trip. So this first site here is an awesome site, beautiful sandy beach that overlooks Addian Pond. This is just a couple of our boats there. Had the loons coming right up on the shoreline there. It's just, I mean, calm as can be. As you can see, this was the next morning. I got up first and started packing up, getting ready to head out. So as an option, if you stayed at one of these two sites here, I think it's the further site out. There is a trail. I think it's 6 miles that goes up to the top of Sally Mountain that overlooks Addian Pond and this whole region. There's wonderful views up there if you're up for a bit of a hike as well in your paddling adventure. So moving across Addian Pond, you have a couple other options for sites here and at the end in this cove. So when you get here, it is clearly marked for the portage. This is the beach that you'll land on at the end here. Thankfully, we had a tailwind pushing us this way, but you'll come to find out that is not always the case once I get to the end of our trip. So you come across here, hit this site. There is a sign here designated in the portage trail, 1.2 miles. I swear that's short. It feels like 3, but it is apparently 1.2 miles. Not the easiest walking, and again, it is mostly uphill because this is where you're gaining your elevation to again go downstream from Whole Head Pond and not have to do any upstream paddling. So when we did it, I think we were one of the first people to do it last year, and as you can see, the boardwalks are in a little bit of disrepair. I don't know if it was a rough winter for them or what, but we moved some back as best we could and just kind of made our way. So this is the trail here. This is where you'll take out and work your way along here. This I highlighted because this is an active railway. There is a cutoff, 3/4 of the way down that looks enticing to want to go up and take the nice smooth rail bed until you reach this road. But I just advise you not to do that because it is an active railway. We did have a train come through while we were on the portage trail. So just grind it out until you get to this road here, cross the rail bed, and then put in over here at Whole Head Pond. This is Whole Head Pond up here. Again, a couple campsites along the way. I mean, there's plenty to choose from. You'll enter the Moose over here, just down in this corner. It's indicated by another railroad trestle here. As you can see, I have my handy dandy Northern Forest Canoe Trail map ready to go. So this is when you kind of enter the stream here, and it's beautiful the whole way through. All through here is just great scenery and everything. You'll see plenty of animals, and as you'll come to find out, we did plenty of fishing and we did plenty of fiddleheading, and that was kind of a compliment to our dinner for a couple nights. So coming down here, this is your first set of quick water. This is Camel Rips down here. As you can see, it's kind of down in this bend. Nothing too extreme. It's runnable for most people, and if not, I mean, it's just as easy to get out on the shore and either line your boat or just kind of carry it down. We ended up staying at this campsite right here. It's a beautiful site. As you can see, I had my tent right over here and fell asleep to the sound of the rips, and plenty of spots to pull a boat out, and you can sit right there and relax. Here's our couple catches from that first day, cooking up our fiddleheads and everything, and just eating dinner down on the rocks. So after you leave there, you'll have another just quick little set of rips right here. Again, nothing too extreme. If you're not comfortable with it, there's plenty of options to go around. You meander your way through here. This right here is an important juncture. This is where it branches off, where you need to portage around Whole Head Falls, which is right here. There is a lot of quick water here, so I wouldn't advise going this way. And there is a sign on this corner. It's kind of hidden. You can see it from the river, but just as long as you have a map and you know that this is upcoming, you know to look for it, and you kind of dive in right here until you hit a tree dam that's blocking the whole river. You get out right here and do the 0.3 mile portage down to the other side of the falls. There's a couple sites in here along the way. The ones down at the end are great sites as well. We stopped there and just had our lunch on day 2, 3. This is Whole Head Falls. There's a side trail off the portage trail that'll take you out to an overlook that looks down upon it. When it's high water, you definitely hear it. So moving down from here, again, we're just following the river the whole way down. Let the current kind of guide you. This is the spot we took camp here, not intentionally. This is where it gets more. I wanted to get to the end of this river because I didn't want to run the risk of wind late in the day on the day of exit. We didn't make it there. Had a couple friends get a little overzealous in this set of rips here on Spencer Rips, which is actually where the NFCT connects. If you were to ever do the NFCT, you would come in here and continue this way. I had a couple friends get a little wet, so we decided to camp here for the night, which was fine. Again, beautiful site here. As you can see over here, this is the other side of the stream where the NFCT actually comes in. So again, another good site. It's runnable, as you can see. I mean, a little bumpy depending on your water conditions, but nothing that can't be managed. So moving down from here, you keep going. This is the end of the river, and this is where you have Adian Rips, which is a long stretch of very mellow rapids. I ran it and I didn't have any issues. All my friends portaged around. There is a designated trail here again with a couple campsites. This next section here is Adian Falls, which is a pretty quick drop. Might have been runnable. I don't know. I didn't opt for it. We ended up coming through here, and again, there's 2 really nice sites right here, and the portage trail just cuts across those sites. So again, this is just an awesome trip, full loop, right back to where you started. You can take as little or as much time as possible. It's only 35 miles. So, I mean, if you are good with your portages and you can do them in one trip, you can really cover some ground. And you could easily do this in a couple days. But if you're more into taking your time and enjoying the different sites along the way and what they have to offer, and the fishing and the fiddlehead and the wildlife, it's a great trip. I do this every year if I could. So coming out here, again, this is what I was saying. We got here late in the day, which I really didn't want to do. And the wind that was originally pushing us into this cove when we came through here the first time was now blowing back across probably 40-mile-an-hour winds, pure whitecaps. And we had to bounce island to island just to get cover, catch our breath before we eventually made it into the clear and back to the parking lot where we started up here. So again, great trip. This is just one of my favorite pictures I took during the trip. And you just circle that mountain and just kind of work your way around. And really enjoyable. Really, I think it's a very good beginner trip. The portages, aside from the main one up here, are all pretty simple. They're all flat, very well. They're plenty wide. Nothing's wheelable, unfortunately, but I mean, if you get a couple sets of hands, it makes quick work. So I would highly recommend this trip. So I'm going to leave it there. Pass it off to Karrie for the next one.
Cool.
Good.
All right. I always love watching everybody pop into these forums, because then you get to see all the names and think of all the people on the other side of those screens. It's great to see some familiar names out there. Here we go. Oh, here I've got to switch to here. And then okay. Can everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up. Thank you. So last year I got invited on a trip, a Spencer Stream trip, which is, Spencer Lake to Spencer Stream to the Dead River. And as the director of the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, I am always giving people advice about lots of different things on the trail, but I had never done this segment. I had heard endlessly that Spencer Stream is the stream from hell and that nobody would ever want to do it. This is always, though, from through paddlers who are going up it. And I can understand why going up Spencer Stream would feel like a significant challenge. But turns out that Spencer Stream going with the flow is a super fun trip. It's also on map 10. So if you look at the upper left corner of this screen, you'll see the trip that Austin just described. And that kind of portage across right in the middle of the left side of the screen is what heads into the spot that Austin pointed out as where the NFCT enters the Moose River. But we put in south of there on Fish Pond, which is the northernmost bulge in that Spencer Lake area. So map 10 is where we're located. You're close
Karrie,
to Jackman, close
excuse
to the Forks.
Excuse me, Karrie, sorry to interrupt. All I'm seeing is Spencer Stream go with the flow. Are you trying to show a map on your presentation here?
I did move forward. Can anybody else see the map? No?
It looks like it froze, Karrie. I can pull it up on my end.
Yeah, maybe you better. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll
No,
stop
no
sharing.
worries. Give me just, it won't take me long to pull it
Yeah,
up.
sorry to come late.
No, that's so good. Thank you.
I was
I
teaching
wouldn't
some Cub Scouts about building fires. They just left my house, so I'm getting late here.
No worries. That's great.
All right.
How's your house?
All right, Karrie, I'm going to take over the screen sharing
Yeah,
here.
go for it.
And is that where you want to be?
Yep, exactly. Can you make it full screen?
I sure can. Let's see. How's that?
Not yet. Can you do push slideshow? Is it doing full screen slideshow on yours? Because it's just not on ours. It'll work if it doesn't work. It's okay.
It's the night of technical difficulties, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't want to do, for whatever reason, doesn't want to seem to do full screen on it.
Did mine move along all right?
Yeah, yours was fine.
Okay. Interesting.
You can't just push slideshow, Chris? In the upper right?
That work? No?
No?
This is still way better than just seeing the home screen, though. This is great.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, okay,
Well,
so
yeah,
we're I can do this. That's not a big deal at all. So we're located, south west in this map on Spencer Lake and Fish Pond, which is south of the Moose River Bow Trip and where the NFCT would portage into the Moose River. So Chris, why don't you hop over to the next slide. So this trip starts off on the west shore of Fish Pond and then travels across Spencer Lake and then down Little Spencer Stream and Spencer Stream to the confluence with the Dead River. It's a short little trip. It's a weekend trip or a midweek 2-day trip. There's plenty of time to relax. It's not any kind of struggle or stress, but it's really pretty in here. Chris, go ahead. So we did it at the end of May, and it's the kind of watershed that you want to hit at spring snowmelt or right after a rain event. We were there in spring when it might have been snowmelt, but one of those years where snowmelt didn't cooperate with us, and we got really lucky and had a rain event while we were out there just in time to bring Little Spencer Stream up. We had about 3.7 on the USGS gauge, which felt to me fairly minimal. You know, I'm sure you could do it a couple, decimal points lower, but it really felt like it would get scrapey. You'd have to jump out and pull over some rocks and that sort of thing. We managed to float the whole thing. It was pretty great. Go ahead, Chris. So here we are launching at Fish Pond. It is a campground and boat launch on the west shore of Fish Pond. And you can camp overnight there and launch. It's private land, but fairly public access. Pretty little pond, beautiful mountains. It's all just nestled into the heart of absolutely nowhere in Maine, which is a wonderful place to be. Here we are heading south on Fish Pond. Go ahead, Chris. And the first day, there's really only one place that you can camp on Spencer Lake, and that's Spencer Beach. It's only 2.6 miles from the Fish Pond launch. But what a lovely spot. You can see the heavy skies coming in, and forecast was for rain that night. We had an amazing, it was beautiful until we went to bed. We went to bed and it rained really hard, and we woke up to sunshine the next morning when we desperately needed that rain. So it was absolutely perfect weather the whole evening. Go ahead, Chris. We had, it's important to go out with a good group of people. We had a sort of an all-star NFCT crew. We had board member, NFCT through paddler, trail steward, and Maine State Senator Nicole Grahowski, and maintainer Russ Ford, and someone who was recently dubbed the Queen of the NFCT, who's with us tonight, Katina Danon, and Chuck Corbett, who's a section paddler, all around the campfire over the evening. And go ahead, next slide. The next day, Noah Pollock and his wife Bess and son Sylvan joined us on the beach. You can see that this is just a spectacular campsite. If you just wanted to go out and spend the weekend at this campsite, it would be well worth it. Spencer Lake is just a gorgeous place, very far away from everything, and only 2.5 miles from a boat launch. So just coming here and going back again would be well worth it. And Sylvan agreed. He thought that these rocks and this beach were pretty perfect. Go ahead. So this is, and looking from the beach to the south of Spencer Lake, so you kind of get a sense of where you are. This particular site is just a kind of a spit of land in the middle of the lake, and it's all sandy and beautiful. But that's where we were for the night. Go ahead, Chris. We paddled out in the morning to a day that felt nice and calm and lovely, and we only had 3.1 miles to go from here to the portage onto Little Spencer Stream. And, I didn't have any photos from later on in the day because, like Austin was saying, the wind came up. Fortunately, it was at our back, but it was all we could do to kind of surf it out, heading down the final stretch of Spencer Lake, heading towards the portage. So I don't have any photos of the second part of that because we were all hands on our paddles going through there. But it all kind of looks a lot like this. So you're surrounded by mountains, you're surrounded by a beautiful small lake, and the sunshine was out, and we saw all kinds of, I'm a little embarrassed to say it. I believe it was a bald eagle nest, but it might have been an osprey. Somebody who's on this can maybe correct me later during the Q&A. But it was cool. It was a very beautiful paddle. Go ahead, Chris. I do want to give a little shout out to the Far Out Guide that has an NFC. The app has the NFCT loaded up on it. The takeout for the portage at the south end of Spencer Lake, the shoreline is just very uniform, and the way that the wind was blowing and the light was flat and everything about it made it almost impossible to see where we were supposed to take out to get to the portage. So it was really convenient to be able to watch ourselves on the app, just kind of cruise across the lake. And go ahead, Chris, to the next one. That bottom left photo, you'll see that you really, even right on top of the takeout, you can't see we couldn't see the icons. It was very difficult to find that access. So I was really happy to have the app. It was very easy. The portage trail is really short, 350 yards or so. There's some rocks in that initial climb up to the nice leaf duff that you can see me carrying through there. But after that, it was pretty smooth. It's not exactly flat, but it's also not super steep, and it's very short. So it's an easy portage. Go ahead, Chris. And at the other end, you put into what we all felt like was Middle Earth. There's this dam that's holding back Spencer Lake, but you're essentially surrounded by rocks like this in a kind of a bowl shape. And you have to paddle up a little bit from where you put in to see this, but it's really worth going up there and checking out the little waterfalls and feeling like you're kind of encapsulated in a cave with an open roof. Go ahead. It's a great poling river. Both Chuck and Nicole got out their poles and spent at least half the time cruising down the river like that, which is an aesthetic way to go for sure. Go ahead. And we did come across a blowdown here. Fortunately, with this water being as low as it was, we were able to sneak under it before we were able to get back up there with our saws, but we had some hand saws with us, and we cleared out all of the branches that were preventing people from being able to easily slide through in the current. It was fun for Nicole and I to get out there and get dirty together on that front. Go ahead. And then you kind of enter a section that has some intermittent little rapids like this. Just a pretty little stream and nothing too complicated. I can imagine there are a few spots in there that at higher flows you'd want to be paying attention on, especially because of the tendency for blowdowns. But it was smooth sailing for us, and really just enough water. There are a couple spots that would have been scrapey if it was any lower. Go ahead. And this, Sylvan thought the rapids were great. He was standing up and jumping up and down the whole way, which is always fun to see. Go ahead. It was only 4.5 miles down to the confluence with Spencer Stream, where we found a lovely bench with some grass and had our lunch in the sunshine and kind of relaxed for a little while because it's not too much further to get to the takeout. Go ahead, Chris. And it's really only, a little less than 2 miles further to the takeout, which is at the confluence of Spencer Stream and the Dead River. You can see the little snowmobile bridge just upstream of that spot. All of us pretty much had to take off at that point, but Katina did continue on upstream on the Dead from there. She portaged around Grand Falls. She just told me earlier today she camped right above Grand Falls that night and then made it up the rest of the dead and almost all the way across Flagstaff Lake the next day. Totally glassy conditions. If it was too windy, you might not make it that far. And then one more day and she was off at the boat launch in Eustis. I know some people make that trip in one day going the other direction, but it seemed like 2 or 3 days was a pretty great pace for that. So if you wanted to come down Spencer and add a few days to your trip, heading across Flagstaff from there is kind of a fun option. You do always want to be aware that if you were to go downstream on the dead, it's like a 3-4 class 3-4 river that you definitely want to be prepared for and know what the water levels are. So go ahead, Chris. And you're right there at Grand Falls, so why wouldn't you walk up and take a picture and check it out, because it's beautiful to contemplate a waterfall, and that's what we did. Go ahead. So just, final logistics there. The season you want to go is either spring and snowmelt or after a heavy rain. And there is a USGS gauge on Spencer Stream, and I would say 3.7. You could make it on less, but 3.7 worked pretty well, and I wouldn't want too much less if it were me. To camp on Fish Pond or Spencer Lake, they're both private land, but definitely allow camping. You need to call and make a reservation. That number is there. It's also on NFCT maps, and if you can't find it, you're welcome to call or email me, and I'd be happy to share it with you. The maps, of course, it's map 10 on the NFCT. Definitely, the Far Out Guide was really handy to have and easy to use there. The shuttle is about an hour and 20 minutes one way using the Enchanted Road, Route 201, and Spencer Road, going through the Forks, and then almost all the way up to, not quite all the way up to Jackman, to head into Spencer Road. From Fish Pond to Spencer Beach is 2.6 miles. So it'd be it's very easy to run your shuttle the day you arrive and then head out to the beach there and camp. From Spencer Beach to the Portage is another 3 miles, and then to the takeout is another 6.3. So just under 10 miles for a second day there. Great trip, really, really beautiful place.
Awesome. Thank you, Karrie. Just as a reminder too, before Jason jumps in, for folks who either joined us late or missed the announcement, if you have questions, just type them into the chat and we will answer them in order when everybody's wrapped up. Jason, I'll turn it over to you. Whenever you're ready, I can pull up your photos and everything too. Just let me know.
Okay, I did a little, I'm going to try a little screen share too at the same time, Chris, but I'll let you know if I'm struggling. So the AV skills are about to, they're going down. I mean, Karrie and Austin pretty much nailed it. So mine will not be quite as great. So I'm used to paddling in the Adirondacks and pond hopping, carrying my boat from here to the next to the next. So we originally, my wife and I decided we're going to take this trip, and we were going to go to Killarney Provincial Park, and we started looking and we're like, man, there's a lot of portage in this thing. So let's think about something different. So I had a conversation with Karrie, and she said, oh, Churchill Dam, start your trip at Churchill Dam and head down the river. So that's what we did. We planned for a 4 to 5 night trip, about 65-ish miles downriver, minimal portage. So the first thing we knew we needed was a shuttle, and we reached out to Norm at Peltier's campground in Allagash, and Norm is a character. He's amazing. He's been there a long time. I had a phone call with him that was started off like, well, yeah, we can help you out. What kind of car do you drive? And I said, I drive I'm going to drive a Toyota SUV. And he says, okay, so if you were going to drive a Prism, I was going to tell you better luck next time. And I think he meant Prius. But he was basically telling us, you have to use these old logging roads to get to the put-in of the trip that we had chose. So I'll do a little, I'll try my screen share a bit here. We knew that, oh, I'm not good at it, am I?
I can pull it up for you anytime, Jay, if you want.
All right, I was gonna look at the map. So we knew we had to get some shuttle services from Norm. So we meet Norm the night before, and we start our trip by just talking about the route. So can you pull up a map of our section, Chris?
Yeah, here we go. Incoming. Oh, it was open. This is our trip planner tool for anybody who's curious.
So we started our trip at Churchill Dam, and Churchill Dam starts with a class 2 rapid. So you're pretty much into it right away. And we opted for, which you don't have to, we opted for the Rangers to move our equipment to the bottom of that rapid. So they'll drive all your gear down to the bottom so that if you take a swim, you don't have to track all your gear down. And I'm sure that's a proactive move by the Rangers, so they don't have to come and help you gather all your equipment down there. So we opted for that that trip. We started off class 2, and I guess I'll back up. We had great water levels, so really easy downhill paddling or downstream paddling for us. Yeah. Right. So this first, so this is our first night. So we paddled from Churchill Dam. We put in below the dam. We paddled about 6 miles of class 2, maybe a couple 3 moves here and there into Debsconeag Lake. We picked up our gear. We moved on, and I'll mention the boat we were paddling. We were paddling Penobscot 17. We were bringing back an Old Town back to its homeland so that we could get it back into Maine for a great trip. So we headed down that lake. We talked about campsites with some rangers prior to that. We found a great campsite on Gray Brook, which was a great campsite for the first night. We were hoping for Cedar Spring. There was somebody there. We were actually hoping for Sam's, which is at the north end of the lake. And we were disappointed for that because there was somebody there. So we had to actually backtrack to Gray Brook to get a site. And when you get to these sites, I don't know if you want to show a picture of a site, Chris, but the sites are unreal. The management of the sites, they're just like fantastic sites. And so keep going up there. So this first one on Long Lake there on the left, southern end, west shore, that was our first campsite. Beautiful site. All of the sites are unreal. I don't know how you could go wrong with any of the sites along this stretch. That was our first night trip. A lot of our highlights along this first stretch were just the great whitewater. We got to see a moose, of course, which we were, it's total bucket list type of thing for us. We want to see a moose. I guess the first surprise to us as we hit the lake was the wind was coming directly out of the north, which kind of took us both by surprise. I'm like, we're paddling north, but we're taking this wind in the face. Why is that? So that seems to be a common thing when you're paddling down this stretch of river, as we discovered later as we met one of the head rangers right before Allagash Falls. So had a great night there. moved on down the river, moving in and out of lakes. Then we get into the river sections of our trip. Go here and get my preview here. So Long Lake, Harvey Lake. You get to a dam that you have to portage around, which is Long Lake Dam. Super simple portage. I'll say one thing is they really run you right up to the edge before you get to the portage. We kind of were like backpedaling, thinking like, oh man, it's here, it's here. We got to it. It was great. We actually met Paul Smith's, which is an Adirondack College here. We met Paul Smith's alum there. And as soon as we made that connection, our portage went from being about a 10-minute portage to about an hour-long portage because we had to talk about Paul Smith's and the Adirondacks the entire time. So below Long Lake Dam was just an unreal section of meandering water that we really enjoyed, with little islands, little tributaries trickling in, and we really enjoyed that section. Our next section was, I wish I could share this map I have up, but I'm not able to. The next pond we were going to end into was Round Pond. At Round Pond, we grabbed a site called Inlet. And that is the site there on the western shore, the first one you come to. Great site, beautiful views. There's a great option for a hike off of Round Pond, which we decided not to do. We met one of the rangers there, and this, what I would say, was one of our highlights as well, is just meeting these rangers and talking to them. There was a lot of pride, a lot of history, a lot of great stories. Every ranger we spoke with there, we must have spent an hour at least talking to these people. This guy had a dog with him. We talked about his dog. We talked about what he does. We talked about how great the campsites were, but just really friendly, really great times here. So this was our second night. You're doing an awesome job, Chris. Thank you. We then moved on, and you slide into a little moving water here. So we were really psyched with all the moving water. You know, we're used to kind of moving our way across lakes and ponds here with most of the paddling we do. So we were really psyched with the moving water here. We moved on down to what was Cunliffe Depot. I'll go back to Chris here. And right there, it was this site, the last up right there on the east shore. This was a great site. This was, as we learned from rangers again, was an area where they would supply original settlers on this river. So there was a road that brought in here, and as the name would suggest, you could get resupplied here if you were out here living in the bush and living off the grid and working logging or not. So that's what Cunliffe Depot was. It was a resupply station. They had an ice bridge there, which we learned they were temporary winter bridges they would build to get across from side to side, and they would be able to stage camps and stage set up. But Cunliffe Depot was a great site. And again, every one of these sites was pretty fantastic. From there, we moved on down, and we're approaching Allagash Falls here. Michaud Farm is where you check in with a ranger. They see you coming. They come out most likely. I guess you can go find them. It's on the left side. It's on the river left. Go back to Zoom here. Michaud Falls. Yep. Michaud Falls, right before we met a ranger there. His name was Trevor. I believe he is kind of the in-charge ranger for this section of water. He was 7th generation on this river, and he could talk all day. If you do this trip and he's there, take him up on any conversation. It was fantastic. My wife and I were basically coming up with questions the entire trip, and then we met this man and we unloaded with questions with him. He was fantastic. We were super psyched to meet him and had a great time talking with him for almost 2 hours, I would say. You then do the big carry around the falls. Not too bad if you're used to carrying out Adirondack stuff. Boardwalks along the way, they lay corduroy along the way, so a pretty easy walk for us. Um, Spend a little time, eat your lunch at the falls, enjoy the scenery, listen to the roar of the falls. We then moved down river from there, and this would be our last night at Big Brook East. And that was, I don't know, I'm not seeing these go back upstream a little, Chris. Yeah, one of those on the side there. Um, yeah, one of these. Big Brook East had a babbling brook along it. Another amazing site. Picnic tables, place for your tarp. They're almost grassy lawns. And I think the second night we met the first ranger we met, and I said, "Do you mow these campsites?" And he basically said, "Yes, we mow these campsites," because they were like grassy yards. They were pretty fantastic. And then from there, you get back down to where you've dropped your car with some locals in a lady, I think her name was Linda. You basically park in Linda's yard, and she hides the key in a special spot that she shows you, and you load your boat up and you go. So that was our trip, and our takeout was the last red. So yeah, this is Norm's fridge. You can see that he's been representing himself for a bunch of years here with his magnetic stickers for his car. He was an awesome guy. I think he was 76, he told us. He would jump in and out of Canadian French, and my wife and I would kind of look at each other, and he'd apologize because he's just used to jumping in and out of English and Acadian French. So that was great. Move on. Let's see the next one, Chris.
Oh, the full screen's not working still? Okay.
No. So this is kind of how you start your day. It's dark. It's a big truck. That's our boat. Super foggy. And then you can jump next. So miles and miles. The shuttle itself, I think we spent almost 4 hours in a vehicle going about 20 miles an hour, maybe 30 miles an hour on rugged roads. This goes back to the conversation of what kind of car do you drive? So again, we opted for the shuttle from Norm and Norm's crew. So lots of dirt roads. So this is how you start. This is 10 minutes in, if not 5 minutes in. So my wife would tell the story right here of she's like, I was like up front, I was gripped, and I looked back, and you were holding your camera in the air, taking a picture with your paddle in your other hand. So that's how she would describe this photo. So this is us without gear. This is yep. So then this is Round Lake. This is where we stay. This is the morning after our first night, which was glassy. And if I had a photo to show of the previous night, it was not glassy. This is where we've discovered that the wind comes directly out of the north and would be in our face the whole time. And yeah, Karrie was like, "You brought a cooler?" And we're like, "Yeah, there's only a couple carries. Like, we're bringing a cooler." So we don't often bring coolers on trip, and we often pack as light as we can. Well, this was an exception and a treat. So this is these great sights. We had full moon. We had amazing sights. You can move on. Slide through that one, Chris. This is Cunliffe Depot. You're up high often on these sites because of the change in the river level. This was one of our sites, which was really great. You're barking at me. This is our portage around Allagash Falls, which was, like I say, not too bad if you're used to doing portage. Sorry, my computer's gonna die.
This is Jason and Zoe, a selfie from the bow of their boat while Jason makes sure his computer doesn't die. Hopefully we don't lose him. And this is an example of luxury canoe camping with Jason Smith.
That's how every day ended for us. So we were very excited to have these nice comforts of home on our wilderness trip.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Yes, I apologize. My cord's falling out over here.
It's a night of technical difficulties all around. We had 4 years of good luck with these things, so it was bound to happen eventually. All right, I'm gonna jump into the chat here and see if we have got any questions. Looks like there was a question about contact for Spencer Lake campsite from Earl, and Katina responded. So Earl, hopefully you saw that. Earl asks, is the Spencer Lake portage relatively new on the left? Karrie, that's a question for you.
So relative is relative. I think it's probably 4 years old that we wound up rerouting it onto the left, but the right side of the river is closed. They don't want anybody over there, and they want you to portage on the left. They do not want you to camp anywhere along that portage. It looks like historically people did do that, and there's a place where you really desperately do want to camp because it looks beautiful and perfect, but don't. It's not allowed.
Brandon asked, is the trip planner a free public website? It is, yes. So the thing that I was using during Jason's presentation to do my best, at least, to follow along with him, that's our trip planner. You can go to northernforestcanoetrail.org, and in the upper left hand of the website, the trip planner link is right there. It's got way more than what we showed you there. You can find guides, outfitters, restaurants, lodging. I think probably another dozen features that you can pull up and plan a trip with, create itineraries, print them. It's a great companion to our guidebooks and our maps and the far out guide as well. John said Norm provided transport for us back in 1982, responding to Jason's adventure there. Well, we got 5 minutes left, and it looks like we have about 35 or so people here. I can give it a shot if you got your video turned on and you want to like wave at me. I could unmute you for you to ask a question.
Hey, Chris,
yeah.
did you want me to breeze through my other trip that I had, or you want to save that for another presentation? I had two for you.
Does anybody care if Austin shares a little bit more from his paddles this summer? Everybody good? If you need to leave, that's fine. We're recording it and we'll post it.
I'll move quick.
Why not, Austin? Go for it. Bonus,
right, I'll
bonus
move
time.
Quick. All right, let me see if I can get this shared again. All right, can you guys see this all right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's see if I can find. There we go. Okay, so my other trip, again, another loop trip, another trip you don't have to worry about any sort of shuttles, anything like that, is up in Millinocket, off exit 244 off 95. You go through the town of Millinocket, end up on the Golden Road over here. This trip originally would ask you to start in Spencer Cove. I wouldn't advise that. You have to cross Jesus Lake, and again, like we've talked about, you never really know what the wind conditions are going to be. So if you can avoid that, which you can, I would recommend it. There's also a seaplane base here. So if you're not moving with any sort of haste out of here, you might have some planes coming to you or coming in from behind you. So just be wary of that. What I recommend doing is coming up along the Golden Road and then turning here onto the Grant Brook Road and putting in at the Grant Brook Road Bridge. This trip's 28 miles. Again, leisure paddle. You can do it as quick or as slow as you want. Great fishing along the way. So let me just breeze through here. So this is the bridge that we put in. You put in and start heading this way. This time you're going clockwise across Jesus. You're going to hug this shoreline here across Pemmidunkuk, and then this is where your first portage is, but we'll get to that. Right here is an interesting location. So as you come out of the stream, this is Mount Katahdin, Maine's tallest mountain that will be staring you in the face most of this trip, which is a treat. So right here, as you come out of here, is the Jesus Boom House, which, as it says, is built in 1907. It's the only surviving structure, still standing from the log drives back in the day that they used to float all the logs down the river. You can still see all the bolts and all the rocks that they used to string cables across. It's pretty cool. They do tours there. If you can line that up on your way by, it'd probably be worth checking out. It's a pretty cool spot. So again, moving through there, coming right along the shoreline here, you're just gonna hug it. There's a couple camps along here, but once you get past this corner, it becomes pretty remote. There's no camps on any of these other ponds, really. There might be one or two tucked in the corner somewhere, but I didn't see any. So this is Moose Island. This is a pretty popular spot to stop for a break or stop for lunch. Again, beautiful views of Katahdin. It's a great sandy island with a couple campsites on it. You get your grill tops and everything you need. So this cove here has great smallmouth fishing. We had really good luck in here. Moving past that, you come to the I think it's the White House Camps is what it's called. It's just a set of camps that people use for snowmobiling, fishing. They rent out boats. And if you look down this corner, you can kind of see it. So this is your takeout for the first portage to take you over to 3rd Debsconeag. It's a 2-mile portage. It's not bad. We wheeled it, never took the wheels off. It's bumpy. It's a little bit uphill, but it follows an old logging road, as you can kind of see here on the map, all the way across to the put in on 3rd. So up here, again, this is 3rd up here. There's one campsite here. We considered staying here, but honestly, it's not a great site. It's way up a hill. You'd be lugging all your gear up a pretty eroded bank. So I would advise pushing past that. Coming to the end, there's 2 sites at the end of this next portage, which is pretty short. So you get your pick of the 2. This again here is this next portage going from 3rd to 2nd. 0.3 miles, nothing crazy. You have this campsite right at the end, and then there's another site across the way here that's actually a little bit nicer. But we stayed at this one here. All our gear was already out of the canoes. We figured why not, and this was the sunrise the next morning. So coming along here, 2nd's pretty short. It's a very rocky lake, very cold water. Again, good fishing through there. And this is your next portage going from 2nd to 1st. 0.8 miles. It's not bad. Again, this one's not wheelable. It almost could be part of the way if you're willing to leave your wheels on and put your canoe over. Not too bad. You can kind of dip in here a little bit, a little early, and paddle if the water levels are, they work for you. If not, you got to go all the way to the end. There's another site right here. Coming through first up here, it's kind of a highlight of the trip is the Debsconeag ice caves, which there's a marker on the shoreline indicating where the trail is from the lake that you can park your canoe and hike up into the ice caves, which is a pretty cool spot. It's all runged down to the ice caves. You go down there in the middle of summer and it feels like you're in a walk-in cooler. A lot of times there's still ice on the ground. If you are big into actual caving, which I am not, you can go pretty deep into these things and not for me. I hiked down in and I hiked back out. So, but there is an overlook as seen here on the left. That's pretty cool. So coming down after you leave the ice caves, there's a ton of sites here. These are pretty popular because you can get to them. Some of them you can get to a couple of them by car. But there's plenty of options. If the one you wanted was taken, there's plenty of options, including the one that we stayed at, which is right here. Lovely sandy beach. This hill over here that you see on the right side of the screen is where the ice caves are. So it's a quick paddle right across. You can walk from this bank all the way out to these rocks and never go above your chest. It's a sand for the whole way out. Great swimming, great spot to crash for the night. And again, over here from the campsite, you're looking at the top of Katahdin. After you leave here, this is actually when you enter the west branch of the Penobscot, coming through here. This island right here is going to be your first and one of 2 sets of quick water that you have to worry about. Other than that, this is all lakes. As you can see here, you could go on this is the right side of the island as you're paddling, and this would be the left. Both are runnable. I actually ran this one, went and looked at this one, realized I wanted to do it, and carried my canoe up and then ran this chute right here. So both are runnable in most conditions. The next one is not. This is Passagamut Falls, which is shortly thereafter. You will hear it. It's this section here. Given water conditions, it's probably going to be a class 3 or 4 when you get to it. This section here is really no better. that we found. We paddled this at Labor Day weekend or just before, and you know how much rain we got last summer. So it was very high water, and it was just, I mean, insane pour overs. These are massive boulders in here. So there's no marked trail for the portage route across. All it is just some stamped down foot traffic from the people that went before you coming across here. It's not very clear, but this is going to be your route to bypass these if you choose to do so. And this is right here. And again, a couple campsites at the end if you wanted. Otherwise, you're coming right back out to the Granite Brook Road Bridge. And that is the end of that. So I know someone asked about the maps that were being used for the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. I just wanted to show, let me actually pull up another screen share real quick. So the maps that I've screenshotted that you can see all these markers for is actually the Maine Trail Finders website. This is an awesome resource. I don't know if any of you have ever used it. All you need to do is go to Find Trails here, go to Trail Activity, and go to Paddling. And you can find all sorts of different paddling trails. Again, zooming over here, you know, into Jackman, you'll find, let's see, right here is the Moose River Bow Trip. You click on this, it's got every description, every detail of every mile of the trip. It's got pictures. It has your trail map that you can zoom in on here. It's a very, very helpful resource when planning either of these trips, honestly, because you can pick your sites with ease and know exactly where you're going. So again, this can be used here. There's all these marks are all just different paddling routes, not all loops, but paddling routes nonetheless. The Northern Forest Canoe Trail sections are all on here. So you can kind of pick and choose through those as well. So I just wanted to mention that. I'll copy the link and post it in the comments for people if they choose to. So, but that is going to do it for me.
Thank you, Austin, for jumping in there with the bonus presentation. I appreciate it. Austin and Jason, Katina asked, are there costs to use the roads or daily use fees? And can you give an approximate cost for accessing the places like the shuttle or the North Main Woods fees?
So for either of my trips, there's no fees attributed to either parking. If you use a shuttle, obviously you're going to have to pay for the cost of the shuttle. But for parking, for site fees, anything like that, there's no fees tied to them. With the Moose River trip, they do ask that you get a fire permit, but that's free of charge, and that's just a courtesy for them. So other than that, there's nothing attributed to the two trips I presented on.
What about you, Jason?
There was a road fee. It's an interesting, I won't explain it well, but it's an interesting patchwork of private land owners, a lot of big landowners that allow access and protect the river corridor. So you're paying to use their roads at a gate. So as soon as you turn off a main road by the St. John and start heading south along the river, you pay an entry fee, you go through a gate, and it's something odd like $7.13. So it's not a lot. We also paid for the shuttle through Norm, and we also paid to park our vehicle at the end in the backyard of a private resident, and there is a per night fee as well. I don't recall what that was. It wasn't much. I believe it was around $20. So those were the fees that we paid for our trip.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're just a little after 8 o'clock. And I think it's probably a good time to put a bow on everything. I want to just remind folks that we did record this, and I will try and get it posted to our YouTube channel and share it out as soon as I can. And I'm also going to have Karrie, Jason, and Austin share their slides with me too, and we'll post those to our website and then share those out as well. So you've got those presentations to work off of if you're planning on doing any of these trips. And then the last thing I'll mention here is April 4th, I want to say, will be our next virtual session, which ironically, again, is going to be more Maine stuff. So if you are feeling like a maniac and you want to do, you want some more inspiration, April 4th, 7 p.m. I'm going to put all that information out on social media and all those places. We have James Shields, Bobby Nolan, and Peter McFarland talking about some of the fun adventures they got up to in Maine last year as well. So we'll share that out, and hopefully I can iron out this fight with Facebook Live that I apparently am having now. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you to Austin, Jason, and Karrie for presenting tonight. And yeah, hopefully we gave you some good information to start building some plans around. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Nice work, you guys. That's great.
Thank
I
you.
lived here and I
Thank
didn't
you.
know all that.